Hello, what lurks beneath. I came across your channel recently as I was surfing around looking for an explanation for an experience I had rather recently, which I believe to have been a skinwalker. I am not at all somebody who is immersed in ghost stories or even taking any interest in supernatural encounters, but this was an experience that has left a mark on me and has confirmed my previously speculative belief in other beings. I'm a waitress from Chicago, and one evening I was finishing my shift. It was long, very, very long, and I was tired. I do confess that I enjoy a cigarette after my shift, and I usually have this with another waiter, Mario, out of the back alleyway where we keep our food bins. Myself and Mario were standing there, chatting and talking about our plans for the weekend, when we heard a groan from behind one of the dumpsters. We both kind of jumped, but then we knew that the alleyway behind the restaurant where we go is often visited by local kids, and we just assumed they were goofing off. I was facing Mario, and he was facing the dumpsters, and we continued conversing and laughing about anything and everything. We both got along so well, and lately there had seemed to be a bit of a spark between us. We heard the grunt again, and this time, Mario yells over, "Hey, knock it off." And we expected to hear laughing and kids running away, but we didn't. Just silence. Mario shrugged it, and I felt a little weird and worried, but at the same time, I really wanted to kiss him, and I didn't want some dumb kids ruining the moment. Of course, it wasn't very romantic in an alleyway, but I had such a long day, and the manager had been totally mean to me. I needed some TLC, and this darn grunting was a pain in my neck. We heard it for the third time, and this time I snapped. "Guys, stop goofing around, or we're calling the cops." I walked over to the dumpster where I could see the alleyway behind, and to my surprise, there was no one there. It was perfectly still and secluded. The only sign of any life was a shrub, which was swaying slightly in the light night breeze. I began to think maybe it was a cat, but I had never heard of such a sound from a cat before. The whole thing was a bit spooky. We both checked our phones to ensure we hadn't seen some strange ringtone, which was playing tricks on us. Our phones were both off, so it had to have been something behind the dumpster. We both finished our cigarettes and resumed our position of me with my back to the dumpster. I began giving Mario the eye, batting my eyelashes, trying to act cute. Maybe, if I was lucky, he would kiss me. I continued watching him and realized his face had gone white as a sheet. Mario's mouth was open, in an expression of absolute horror, terror, and bewilderment. His eyes scrunched up, as if he was seeing something terrible. I turned around and immediately grabbed a hold of his arm, as I witnessed the being he had spotted. Before us, behind the dumpsters, was a man, or it looked like a man, that had to have been around 8 to 9 feet tall. This thing towered over me and Mario, but this was not any man. It was a beast. His, or her, or its body was covered in brown fur, with what looked to be white patches. His feet were stuck together, forming a solid block of marble, and its eyes were like red slits. It also had a kind of antler-like thing coming out of its forehead. I did not know what I was seeing, but I immediately made an active confession as I prepared to die. I felt this beast was so monstrous that it would surely annihilate me and Mario on the spot. Whatever it was came from the pits of hell. The creature continued to stare at us with eyes filled with menace and curiosity, as if taking in these strange creatures before it, us, We both just stood there, holding each other and shaking. I could feel this man's whimpers and moans, as if he had become a 5-year-old kid again, scared of the boogeyman. But this was a boogeyman. This was literally a beast from the pits of hell. This creature raised its hand and gestured them towards us. Its arms were now reaching up before us, and white sparks seemed to emanate from its fingertips and bolted to the sky, and seemed to almost circle over us. Mario began screaming in terror, and I fell to the ground, surrendering myself to the monster, as this was becoming unbearable. Mario's screaming stopped, and I opened my eyes, and the creature was nowhere to be found. We both continued sobbing and hugging each other for another 20 minutes before we garnished the strength to walk back into our shift. I have felt extremely emotionally unwell and fragile since this whole experience, and have not been able to eat much or sleep. I keep having frequent nightmares and have had flashbacks, which have literally made me break out in pools of cold sweat. I feel as if something is watching me, and I don't know what or how to shake this feeling off. I don't know if that creature did something to me or what happened, but I have felt violated on an emotional level since then. Mario has been off work too. He put it down as stress and anxiety, and I have no doubt that he too is experiencing total terror. I have only spoken to him once, but he kept his distance from me, as if I have somehow been responsible for the terrible sights we saw. It's, well, been only a few weeks since this event, and I need answers and a sense of healing with conclusions. I can't live like this, and I'm thinking about seeking professional help. Can you look into this and see if this was a skinwalker, or if there have been any other similar sightings in my area? Hi, my name is Larry, or for the sake of this story, I'll call myself Larry. I'm a 35-year-old accountant based in London, England. I'm writing in as I have recently been undergoing some mental health counseling, and I have an exercise in which I have to try and heal particularly traumatic incidents. When I was 17, I believe I encountered a skinwalker. I know it sounds insane, but please, bear with me. Listen to my story. I consider myself a kind and considerate person now, but when I was a teenager, I won't lie, I was kind of an a-hole. I bullied weaker kids with issues, kids from bad homes. Basically, anyone who I felt was below me, I made them feel even worse. I guess I just felt bad about myself and felt the need to embellish myself by putting others down. I feel bad about it now, and I've done a lot of work on healing the past. But one incident still haunts me to this day. So, in math class, the teacher had fallen asleep at his desk, and I decided to have some fun. I put on the teacher's glasses and began writing stuff on the blackboard. All the things I wrote were insults about the kids in the class. A few examples would be Larry Lisp Rafferty, or Michael No Mates because your mom's fat. It was pretty mean, but my friends in the class laughed and made me feel like I was a hero. The thing about it was, I never picked on anybody who I knew would stand up for themselves. I was always careful to target somebody who had low confidence and couldn't defend themselves. I guess anyone who reads this story won't have much sympathy for me, but all I can do is articulate that I am remorseful for how I treated people during my school years. Hurting people hurt people. And I guess I channeled my own self-hatred through my persecution of weaker individuals. On this occasion, in the same class, there was a class sitting at the back with long black hair. She was a pretty goth-looking girl, nose ring and all, dark eye makeup, and pale foundation to make her already look like ghostly white. She wore her hair down to her waist and she had large glasses. She wore a dark blouse and deep purple jackets with black and purple striped stockings. She was actually quite pretty, but clearly wanted to hide her appearance away behind all the goth makeup. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Louise, but everybody called her Loser. There was a rumor going around the school that her father had been sent to prison for abusing her, and that's why she was so messed up. Her calmness and lack of interest in my bravado infuriated me. She was just sitting back there, looking out the window with her icy blue eyes. It sickened me. I wanted to make her recognize me and my power. So I shouted to her, "Why don't you come up and teach us math? You seem to teach your dad a few tricks." She continued staring out the window, and some of my friends laughed but looked pretty sheepish. I had clearly taken it too far. A single tear came down her cheek, and it was such a fragile event. I felt like someone had kicked me in the stomach. I went back to the front and picked on another kid. As I was walking home that evening, I wasn't too far from my house. I saw a dumpster in an alleyway, which was shaking. I wondered what the hell it was, but decided to just walk past it. A further bit along my path, I noticed a work van parked on the footpath. Its windows were all misty, and there was a screaming coming from within the van. It definitely wasn't lovemaking, but sounded like raccoons or some type of animal. At this point, I got a bit weirded out. For some reason, I had the urge to turn around, and when I did, I could see a figure about 10 feet behind me. It was Louise, but was not the Louise from class. This figure, this creature had the facial features of Louise, but was over 7 feet tall, with eyes which seemed to emanate red, and they were striking my heart through an intense stare. Although no pain, it was total fear that I felt. Her hands seemed to be covered in a matted black fur, and thighs that had expanded to look like thick tree trunks of hunk and muscle, like a damn dinosaur. The expression from this being was of an absolute fury, and I truly believed that I was going to die. I screamed at this thing to leave me alone. As I shouted, I fell to the ground and attempted to crawl backwards. This creature's arm extended out, and it raised its hands high up. At that moment, a large amount of static electricity and lightning began shocking through the sky. I began to cry and managed to get up and run back home. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and prayed for forgiveness. I knew I had somehow angered God or the universe by my humiliation. The next day, the person who was Louise, or whatever, was gone. Rumor had it that she had left school and moved back with her birth mother to Scotland. I didn't tell a soul about my experience. Years later and now, I wonder if Louise may have been a skinwalker, I guess you would call it. It would certainly make sense from my knowledge. If you can assist me in any way, that would be great. I know very little of skinwalkers. I know they're supposed to be of American native lore and legend, but I've also heard they are also shapeshifters, which, again, I don't know anything about. But anyway, this story is real, and I'm still dealing with the trauma of it. Please, help me.